How are people doing? I I decided to do an impromptu live stream. I was inspired by an article I wrote for a client the other day. I'm a freelance writer, and they asked me to write about the relationship between depression and procrastination. And so writing this article was eye-opening for me in a lot of ways. I learned about myself. So apparently, there's many sources of procrastination. There's many reasons people do it. But what I learned about in my research is that a lot of people aren't aware of the fact that depression and anxiety can also lead to procrastination. So it's not always a willful thing. And ironically, or coincidentally, people use that word ironically wrong a lot of the time. I found myself doing it a couple days after they wrote this article. So like, I was really anxious about a phone call that I had to make to a family member, and then I was unconsciously distracting myself by doing other things for a few hours that weren't as important. And then because I had written the article, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing the thing that I wrote about in the article. So if sometimes you could be anxious about something you have to do, like doing your taxes, and so people find, unconsciously or consciously, sometimes we do things to avoid facing those things that give us negative feelings. And so, like, if you're depressed and you have anxiety, this can lead to procrastination. And sometimes procrastination can lead to falling behind. And then sometimes that falling behind can lead to more feelings of anxiety and depression. And so, as I was writing about this was really eye opening, and it was explaining the research I was doing, the relationship between avoidance and how when something makes us uncomfortable or it forces us to do something we're afraid of, we can put it off. So, like, you could spend hours playing Candy Crush, even though you intended to finish something really important that day, even though you had errands to finish. So, procrastination, I learned, isn't always a willful thing. So, I don't know if you've experienced that, but it's important to understand that, because, like, even just being aware of it can change can help you modify your behavior. If not completely, it can help you modify it in ways that is helpful. So, for example, some of the examples I read is like, if a person has anxiety, say for example they're experiencing a troubling symptom, like a persistent cough that won't go away, or they find something on their body, a physical symptom that could be a sign of something really bad, they feel anxious, and so they know they should schedule an appointment with their doctor, but because they're anxious, they keep putting off scheduling an appointment with the doctor. And so they'll, like, find an activity to distract themselves, and that activity distracts you from calling the doctor. And then when that activity is over, you unconsciously, or maybe consciously, search for another distraction. So that's one way it works. Anxiety is a part of this vicious cycle, right? If there's like depression, anxiety, and procrastination, and it goes on and on. So another example, for example, you're not sure if you can pay the bills this month. You're worried about the future. So then that may cause you to not open the mail altogether. And then the mail is literally piling up because you're afraid of opening the mail. So, and sometimes we don't even realize we're depressed, right? And another way it manifests itself is like perfectionism, fear of failure. So, if you consistently hold yourself to high standards, and there's nothing wrong in and of itself with holding yourself to a high standard, right? Everything is within context. But if everything has to be perfect, let's say you think, okay, my life will be over if I don't get an A on everything, then that can lead you to avoid doing something, because the fear of failure is so great that you won't accept anything less than perfection. So you end up putting stuff off. And that's ironically how people fall behind, because they want things to be perfect. So the fear of getting anything less than that extremely high standard leads to ironically not doing that thing. And so you end up falling behind. And especially when deadlines are involved, this if you're a perfectionist, this can be difficult sometimes. And so one of the suggestions that I read from professionals was that therapy can help. Therapy can help you uncover the source of your procrastination. And again, there are many reasons people procrastinate. So I'm not saying everybody who procrastinates is depressed, because there are other reasons involved. But there are many times where people are written off as being lazy or willfully procrastinating as if it's a character flaw, but they're actually experiencing mental health issues. So let's say you feel overwhelmed, and all day long you set this goal. Okay, I'm going to make dinner reservations for me and a friend, like pre-COVID. Okay, and then you keep trying to do it, and it takes so much energy that you don't do it. And so your friend might be angry at you, or being depressed and procrastinating could lead to being late. And if people don't know why, they may think you're just being an unreliable or difficult person. Other ways anxiety can manifest. So how it works is that we have this thing called executive functioning, and we use executive functioning every day, even to make basic decisions. So we use executive functioning to organize tasks, to plan how we're going to finish those tasks, and to execute them. So you use this every day, so you may not be aware of it. But when you're depressed, it hijacks executive functioning. So I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but you can spend an inordinate amount of energy and time thinking, okay, well, should I eat or should I shower? Should I eat or should I shower? And then eventually end up doing nothing, because you don't shower and you don't eat, because the anxiety and the depression got to you and it led to procrastinating. So that's one way it manifests. And they were saying that therapy can help. I've written and done videos on related subjects before, like stress hacks for perfectionists. So I will link to that video. I did an article, 5 tips for being reliable when you are depressed. And there's some overlap between a little bit of overlap between this subject of perfectionism and depression leading to procrastination. There's like a little bit of overlap. Like I've talked about just starting things, like if it seems like a lot of energy to brush your teeth, like taking out the toothpaste, that's something. Taking out the mouthwash, that's something. And then going back to it later, like little by little, chomping down the tree little by little. And finding people in your life that can be a part of a support network is so important, right? And a therapist, a healthcare professional, could be one of those people. But if we could all have someone in our lives, a few people that we can be honest with, that helps. So, for example, like I had a friend in college, and he was procrastinating for mental health reasons. He would call me over. So I would help him. We would study alongside of each other. And in the times we're living in, you can do that on Zoom. Like you can work alongside somebody else on the opposite side of the screen. They're doing the thing, your friend is doing the thing he has to do, and you're doing the thing you have to do. It's the virtual equivalent. Remember when we used to go to Starbucks with someone? And like you'd have a study date with somebody, you'd both go to Barnes and Noble and eat at the Starbucks and get stuff done together. It's like it's a lot less lonely, right? If we can do it together. So finding ways, and sometimes you don't have to be 100% like explaining in every detail why you can't do something. But sometimes, like a lot of times when I'm working with people and they're depressed, saying something is better than just ghosting and being MIA. And I've talked about that too, like, how hard it is on both sides, right? When you ghost because you're depressed. I just did a video about that called Ghosting, Bipolar, and Depression, and then being on the other side of things. So let me know if you've ever struggled with that vicious cycle of depression, anxiety, procrastination. How do you deal with it? What things, do you find hard to do? What do you need help with? How can we find help, right? So these aren't easy subjects, and I'm learning too. I'm just like learning as I go along. This article taught me about myself, writing it for this client. And if you what was I going to say? I'm so tired. I can't think straight. Oh yeah, so if you want to hire me, I'm a freelance writer and I write about many subjects. This client that hired me to write about depression and procrastination, they've hired me to write about many other subjects related to depression as well. And when this article is up on depression and procrastination, I will eventually link to it in the description box below. um, Thank you for listening. Also, one important announcement: if you're living in the US, we have a shortage of over 200,000 poll workers. And this is because historically, the majority of people who have been poll workers are the elderly, and they are a high risk group. So, if you'd like to sign up to be a poll hero, a poll worker, I encourage you to go to Poll Hero Project. The Poll Hero Project is recruiting high school students and college students to be poll workers. And you can sign up. So far, they've recruited 5,000 people. And, so democracy is a group project. So think about that, signing up to be a poll worker and helping out. We have a shortage nationally. But thank you for listening, and I'll see you in my next video. Have a good week, everyone.